Hello, everyone, and welcome. My name is ZRINKA STAHULJAK. I'm Professor of French and Comparative Literature here at UCLA and also Director of the Center for Medieval and Renaissance Studies. It is my pleasure to welcome you on behalf of UCLA's Center for Medieval and Renaissance Studies that is in its 58th year, having been founded in 1962 as an organized research unit of the University of California system. The center promotes and sustains transdisciplinary studies of the period from late antiquity to the early modern era. And since 2019, when I took over as director, it includes the spatial coverage of the globe beyond the traditional understanding of European late antiquity, Middle Ages, and Renaissance, formally making connections that are true to the time period, from Africa to the Pacific Rim to East Asia. Now, for years, the center has also supported research in antiquity. So we pride ourselves in the global study of the past in grounding research and teaching across the longest temporal and historical span and widest geography, a unique position on campus and in the UC system. Now, you may wonder what this global perspective has to do with Varallo and the Sacri Monti of Northwestern Italy conference that we will be opening today. It fits into the vision of CMRS, indeed, from this global perspective, as I will develop in the next few minutes. And so I'm very pleased that we were able to fund and logistically support this conference. Varallo and the cluster of 9 pilgrimage sites in the Italian Alps, 7 in Piemonte and 2 in Lombardy, have been a UNESCO World Heritage Site since 2003. The motivation for the original site of Varallo, founded by a Franciscan, Bernardino Caimi, on his return from the Holy Land at the end of the 15th century, was to create, with precision and realism, a new Jerusalem, a series of holy sites of medieval Syria. So it was a cluster of reproductions of hardly accessible or almost inaccessible sites of Christian faith for those who may never cross the distance and visit in person, because pilgrimage at the end of the 15th century was not merely an expensive enterprise, but also a perilous one. A Jerusalem away from Jerusalem paved the way for a unique architectural and artistic output in a creative displacement. Thus today, not only are Sacri Monti the heritage of the world, but they are also a precocious example of medievalism, a form of reenactment that itself became an original site of creation. Today's conference thus fits with 2 of the CMRS research axes which direct our research. Sustainability, repurposing, that is the medieval aspect of this conference. Fluidity, permanence, that is because of the scholarship engaged with materiality and technologies. But it is perhaps the 3rd axis that is the most significant: conversion mobility. Varallo is a crossing of physical and imaginary borders, and the fact that it was founded by a Franciscan represents the conversion mobility aspect in the most literal sense, preaching and living the gospel in their efforts to incite Latin Christians to repentance and Muslims to conversion was the Franciscans' main ministry. Even more importantly, the Franciscan connection relates to CMRS's commitment to the global past. Not only did Francis of Assisi travel himself to preach and convert Muslims in Egypt in 1219, but Franciscans were the most mobile and global order. The province of the Holy Land was founded in 1217. The Pope designated the Franciscans as the custodians of the holy places in 1342. They were among the first to be sent to the Mongol imperial court in mid-13th century. Friars like John of Plano Carpini and William of Rubruck. Indeed, the Franciscan story is a global story. Franciscans were the first missionaries to the Americas. We know that some had come in 1493 on Columbus's 2nd voyage. In 1524, 12 friars, known as the 12 Apostles of New Spain, Los 12 Apóstoles de México, arrived in Mexico to begin the process of evangelization of indigenous peoples. Dominicans arrived in 1525, but Franciscans always kept the largest presence. Finally, let us not forget that the Franciscan project of a public economy, of a Christian economy, synthesized in the 15th century with the Monti di Pietà, and they are the precursor of our modern banks today. So now more than ever, we need to analyze these global movements again and understand the history of colonization, proselytization, and conversion that the mobility of Franciscans brought literally to our own doorstep right here in California. All of this crystallized in the figure of Junipero Serra. We need to do this. It is imperative and necessary as we deal with our own colonial heritage in systemic ways. This is then an occasion and a debt to acknowledge our presence on the traditional, ancestral, and unceded territory of the Gabrielino Tongva peoples. As a land-grant institution, we pay our respects to the Honuquetam, Ahihiram, and Eyohinkem, past, present, and emerging. Thank you and welcome.